Welcome back, everybody. It's Omni Talk Retail coming to you live from the Manifest 2024 conference in the Omni Talk booth, K15.
K15.
I'm Ann Mazenga.
And I'm Chris Walton.
And we are joined in between us by the lovely Kristen Daihes, the Vice President of Global Supply Chain at Mars. Kristen, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Yes. How is the show going for you so far?
It's going great. I'll say it's a bit overwhelming because there are so many different vendors here to be able to explore what is new and emerging out there. But it's great, even the practitioner community, to be able to share, connect, and learn with one another.
I bet.
And we want to talk to you more about that for sure. But before we do that, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and your role at Mars?
Great. So yes, I'm an electrical engineer by background,
Oh, wow.
by training.
Okay.
So I started my early career in factories, designing equipment.
Really?
And then I made my way into supply chain, supply chain planning, inventory management, you name it. But now at Mars, I'm leading their global supply chain COE, and I head up an investment program that's specializing in the data and analytic and basically digitalization of supply chain space.
Oh my gosh, that sounds like an immense job, actually. So
Yeah.
how do you get a handle on that?
It's a lot of fun. I'm grateful that we actually have a super smart team of fantastic people.
Oh my God.
But there's a lot going on. I think the big thing is just being very focused and choiceful in a few key areas that we want to drive momentum, and just remain disciplined and looking at how you continue to build the journey year after year.
Yeah, because how many countries does Mars operate in?
Oh my gosh, a lot, yeah.
Like it's like hundreds though, right? I mean, it's like almost
Yes,
every
yes.
country in the world, right?
Yes,
And you're in
yes.
charge of all that. Wow.
Well,
It's fun.
Kristen, let's dive into a little bit about why you're here at Manifest. I mean, it sounds like you're kind of trying to stay on top of what's happening in the industry, meet with other peers, but tell us a little bit about, what you like to do here, how you game plan coming to Manifest.
Yeah, I think one of the most important things that I do, there's two things that I was doing before coming here. One was really scoping out who are some of the peers from other companies
Okay.
that were coming, so that we could be really intentional on connecting to share and learn from one another.
Oh, that's
the
cool.
second one was just taking a look at who are some of the new vendors that would be out here in this expo hall. And in a lot of cases, it's hard to keep the pace with technology.
Yeah.
For the journey that we're on, I feel very strongly that there's a build, there's a buy, but sometimes it's a co-develop.
Yeah.
So sometimes with what you need, we're not going to find exactly what is going to hit every need. So I like just walking around and scoping to see who's out here, and more importantly, how do they engage with our customer base
Yeah.
to figure out if we have a need that really doesn't have a very clean solve yet.
Yeah.
Is there chemistry with somebody that may present, a teaming partnership opportunity?
Kristen, this is it's probably going to be an odd question, but how do you do that? I mean, do you find that other peers of yours are receptive to, do you just go get coffee with them? How does it work? I mean, I feel like that's something that people are wanting to do. I'm sure our listeners are too, but how have you found success in connecting with your peers?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is there's not a single person that I reached out to that maybe I didn't know, but
Okay.
cold reached out that wasn't willing to have a conversation.
Yeah.
In some cases, it's a small world, so there are people I'm reconnecting with through
Sure.
earlier lives. And just collectively, I think, extending our networks together. But I'll say, candidly, I think people have been very candid, open, authentic,
Yeah.
and there's not been a lack of willingness to share not just what has worked, but, I think people have been very open and vocal in sharing what were some of the mistakes they made.
Yeah.
And how do others learn from that so
Yeah.
that they don't have to repeat the same.
That's really great. I mean, we've asked that question of a lot of people over the years. I think that's the first time anyone has ever said that they use these conferences to reconnect with peers and are very deliberate in their approach in doing so. So that's very commendable. The other thing that brings you here, the other reason you're here is you're speaking on stage, right? So I'm curious, what are some of the messages you plan on delivering to the audience when you give your speech?
Yes. So I'm part of a panel of cross-industry peers that are talking about tools and technology. And some of the key messages that we're talking about are, especially in anything that you do in solutioning, a lot of it is grounded by data.
Right.
And so
there it is again, folks.
So yeah, if other people are mentioning it, there's a tremendous amount of learning that we've had in this space, and actually saying, you have to build trust with a broader ecosystem and incentivize them to have willingness to share data, bidirectional data sharing, and together we may be able to build out solutions for mutual value versus any one of us trying to convince somebody to give them data that you're going to use in your own organization in isolation.
I'm curious, this is great. What is your rubric for whether or not you will or will not share data with someone, if you can talk about that at all? I'm always curious about how people approach that, because it always comes up. People are always talking about, well, it's my own data, I don't want to share it, or but there are instances where it's valuable to share it. So how do you think through that?
Yeah, so I think for one, it's what are you trying to achieve? And so somebody may be asking for data, and if there's a real good understanding of what they're trying to achieve, does that present a very different opportunity for a conversation to explore doing something together? One of the other pieces that we're talking through from a data perspective is within Mars, there's 5 principles, and one of the 5 principles is mutuality, and we think very strongly about this.
Yeah.
And so in engaging in conversations with people, I think it's not just what's in it for you, what's in it collectively for the community. Yeah. So if you're going to ask me for something, is there a value that I get out of it? Is there a value that you get out of it? Is there a bigger value for a broader ecosystem? And I actually even see a lot more creative innovation happening in a space in looking at partnering to share data across even competing companies in a way that I've not actually seen in the past.
Yeah, so you did great there. Yeah, no, we got that back on track. Yeah, no problem at all. No problem at all. But the key point being you're very deliberate in how you think about that when that situation arises, in terms of, okay, what is the value of me sharing this data from Mars with my partners?
Yes, that's exactly right. Yeah, and I think we have to be willing to. I think years ago it used to be nobody was willing to share, nothing leaves my environment. But I think the reality is the problems that we're trying to solve and the complexity is ever increasing. And I'm always a firm believer that we can co-create and build out solutions that have a much better impact for the ecosystem that any one of us can do on our own.
Right, especially when you have the partners that you're working with who are able to kind of say, we're seeing this here and this here, and how do we make things better for all of us?
Put all the different pieces together, right?
It's very nice to hear that, actually.
Yeah, well, I'm curious then, what kinds of technology or what kind of partners are you out here looking at while we're walking the floor of the Manifest Expo Hall?
So one area that definitely I'm interested in is we are on a multi-year journey to automate our factories and our warehouses.
Okay.
So definitely when I take a look at how far we've come in automating warehouses, there's still a lot of challenges that I see out there in terms of looking at case picking.
Yep. Hearing that a lot today too.
Yeah, like if you have a full pallet, there's a lot of good solutions out there, but when you start getting to more of the complex stuff, it gets a lot harder. And so I'm interested in looking at what's out there, how are we progressing with the options, and more importantly, in some cases, if we don't have a solve yet, how are some of these companies coming together collectively to think about how they might tackle that? And for us, I think in a lot of cases, it's a matter of looking at how do you, if nobody has any integrated full solution yet, can we co-create and bring something to the market together that helps add value?
Yes.
I'm curious too, only because we're having this conversation in a LinkedIn webinar soon where we're going to talk about the trends people are seeing in supply chain and how they're impacting both the retail side as well as your side, the CPG side of the organization too. So based on what you said in terms of automation, how else are you thinking about the supply chain network in terms of size of building, types of automation? Anything you can share there for our audience?
Well, I mean, I'd actually even say, maybe I'll answer a bit of a different question a bit. Not so much on the size of the building, but when you talk about retailers.
Or location too,
Yeah, I mean, we're doing a lot of work to understand what our biggest challenges are for our key customers, our retail customers. And so if there are things like somebody saying, it's very important for me to look at cracking same-day delivery to my consumer base. What does that mean for me as a shipper? And if we could be more intentional on saying, what are the most important lanes for you to win in same-day delivery? What would need to be true for us to think about how to be more reliable on those lanes, then it really creates mutual value driving growth together.
Right.
Got it. So are you talking drop shipping then in that situation, or is that like you're shipping on behalf of the retailer to the destination then? Is that the case?
I mean, in some cases, it may just be same-day replenishment to a key retail
to the store. Okay, got it.
That then has what they need to be able to support same-day delivery to the customers or customer pickup.
Yeah, or wherever they're distributing their product to.
Exactly.
Got it.
Yeah, I mean, and even broader,
Or
I guess
from.
that it kind of brings up the whole question around the broader omnichannel
Yeah.
Yes.
landscape that is becoming more and more complex. How do we take a step back and say, I probably can't go find and buy exactly what I need. What am I trying to solve for? Is there a different way to build out a community of partners that may be able to crack that better together?
Yeah, so that and that I think stems from what we were hearing earlier today, which is sometimes that's Mars getting the product directly to a consumer versus Mars, saying, here are the retail outlets. You need all of those options to really satisfy your customers, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's why my mind went there. Okay, so let's get you out of here on this. So if you were to step back and say, these are my priorities for 2024, what would they be?
I think, so in the panel talk that we're saying, the most important thing for me is to think about the associates that are running our day-to-day operations and those that we partner with. And so my number one objective is to say, how do we make the work easier for them every day and to make it easier for our partners, whether it be suppliers or downstream retail customers, to do work with us?
Makes sense. That's That's also an answer we've never heard before.
I know.
I love it.
Yeah, it's
no one ever starts there.
It's the first thing that we first time we heard that today.
And automation's interesting in that too, because it can be the employee's best friend if you deploy it the right way.
That's
They're as excited about it as anybody, right?
Creates a capacity for them to go do other things.
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you for joining us. It's been great to meet you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, Kristen Daihes of Mars. We'll be back with more interviews later today and throughout the show. So stick around, and Ann, as always,
be careful out there.